for me, for jujitsu, for wrestling. But
Yeah.
when you first start out, you don't know where to explode and where to relax. So you gas out so fast because everything is like, huh. And then
Yeah.
as you get like more experience, you realize like this isn't worth me putting all my energy and I'm gonna stay calm until I have this opportunity to really explode. Otherwise, it's just a waste. Like I'm gonna be tired with nothing to show for it. And I never really thought about that with business, but that kind of is what happens is you learn where to be calm and where to be crazy.
Yeah, dude. That's a phenomenal analogy, dude. Yeah, that's bang on. That's
Well,
good.
it's your analogy, sir. You gave that to me, so that's
I don't
good.
know,
Good
dude.
on
The
you.
jujitsu bit, that was fire. Okay. So that's awesome.
Nice, man. So you said something very impressive there. You were like, man, we started out with three, and then within 6 months, we're at like 25, 30, 40. Now we're doing like 60, 80. Like for somebody that was looking for their first deal, they were like, that was awesome, but they can't even fathom that. So for the people that are now listening and going, well, how does that happen? Because I have some deals going. I got my three, five, six. How do I get to 20, 30, 40, 50 without totally ruining my quality of life and having to pay $100,000 a month in overhead? And so talk about that scaling and where you guys got it now and how you put that in place.
Yeah, totally, dude. I mean, to address those two things, as far as like not making my life feel like I'm super overwhelmed, I think really that's like team building and the different levels of building in team. When you're first starting out, you're going to hire people that you can afford to pay, which will be, generally you're going to pay a lot less. Like when we were first hiring, I was paying people like $11 an hour. Okay. And so that means like you're hiring your friends or anyone that's willing to trust you, you know what I mean? And you're really selling them on like, hey, this thing is going to be awesome and we're going to grow together. You know what I mean? And you're going to be part of that core team that grows with the company. So we're all taking sacrifices now, but you can grow. The reality is like when you're hiring for that person, you're hiring for someone that you hope is high potential, but they're not high skill, right? Like they haven't already developed a skill. Otherwise you couldn't hire them for $11, right? Or $15 now or $18 now or whatever, right? And so like you're hiring for high potential. So identifying high potential is really important. The tricky part with that is like when you hire them at first, they just add more work to your plate, right? Like you have to now train them and make all the money, right? You got to be the rainmaker and you got to train them. Then the next step is like now they're about net even. They still take up some of your time, but they're about net even, but you're still making all the money. And then they start to take some work, like admin work or basic work off of your plate. At this point, they might not even be worth what you're totally paying them, but they're at least taking some work off your plate. And then they graduate into taking meaningful work off of your plate. Now that is magic, right? Once they're actually taking meaningful work, they've been trained up. They're no longer just high potential, but they're high skill. They're actually taking real work off of your plate, right? Which means you can get the same dollar result in your business with you physically doing less, right? And that means you need a good training system, good training process to bring people up. What most entrepreneurs do is they have no systems or no training, right? There's nothing formalized around that. And so they go out and they hire a bunch of people that they maybe aren't even really high potential, but are lower potential. Like they didn't identify high potential, they just got lower potential. They do some training with them, but it doesn't stick because they're low potential. So it's going to take them longer to learn anything, right? And they get like 2 steps in and they're like, screw this, dude. Like, it's been 6 months. You still suck. I'm still doing all the work, making all the money. And now I got to manage you and make all the money. So I'm out. That's where most people quit, right? And the problem was they didn't have the patience to train that person to be high skill. That was just high potential originally. They didn't have the patience for that. And they also probably didn't give them the tools they needed, or they didn't identify someone that was high potential. I think that's the biggest thing that most people mess up is they don't get over that first hurdle. It's the hardest part of growing a business is that first level of people that you bring in and train. And if you can get past that, like we do a deal in Phoenix, probably one a day, something like that right now in our corporate store. I haven't comped a deal in Phoenix in like 5 years. I haven't looked at any of those. But Zach, who's a freaking rock star GM who was a gymnast buddy of mine, right? So he started high potential, right? But no skill, didn't know anything about real estate and built up skill. And now he freaking runs the whole thing and he's phenomenal. So with that, like you have to have the patience for that. You have to be willing to invest. And you also have to have good people that are willing to make the investment as well. You know what I mean? Like wasn't easy for Zach to learn all those skills. He had to choose to stick it out. Anyhow, I think that's the big first threshold. The second one the question you brought up was around like, hey, how do you not have $100,000 fixed costs, right? And the reality is $100,000 fixed cost when you're making a couple million a month is freaking cool. You're like, it's all good, dude. Happy to pay it. Here you go. Like this is amazing. But if you want to get away from that, right? Variable comp to begin can be phenomenal. You've kind of got like a scale for comp. The most expensive is equity. You shouldn't be giving equity away if you can. It's the most expensive form of compensation. So it goes like equity, then rev share, then profit share, right? This is in order of expense. So like some people like you get 3% rev share. That's actually really expensive money. Like if you're paying them 3% of rev share off of, let's say you're doing 300 grand, it's like, cool, their bonus is like 9 grand. But when you do 10 million bucks, now they're making $300,000 on top of their salary. You're like, wow, frick, dude, I could have hired like a baller COO for that amount of money. You know what I mean? And then you kind of break it down to like hourly salary or commission only, right? And commission only is really some of the most inexpensive comp in a sense, right? When you're first starting, it's more expensive when your deal flow is very consistent. But if you have inconsistent deal flow, you should make commission only comp like your baseline, because then they get paid when you get paid. And so you don't have the fixed cost risk that most people do. So if you can start commission only and you're willing to invest in your people through a good training program, within 6 months, you can have leaders that have skill, right? That are taking meaningful work off your plate. That's like a great first level of scale.
That's fantastic, man. I love that. And you bring up such a great point where I think there's an expectation where somebody goes, I'm going to hire an assistant. I'm going to hire an acquisition guy. I'm going to bring somebody on my team. And now I'm going to have all this free time and life's going to be amazing. And they don't realize that what you said is so valuable that you're going to have to double time it first. And I
Yeah.
remember like one of my mentors, Mark Evans, he was like, dude, hire an assistant. And I remember I hired an assistant and I was like, this is where the magic happens. And then like 30 days later, I fired her because I was like, I didn't realize that I have to put in twice the work to teach her how I work. You just
Yes.
assume like I hire and she's magic. It's like, no, you need to copy you. So you need to teach her how to be you. And most people forget about that whole part. They think they're
Yeah.
going to pay $5 an hour for somebody as a virtual assistant, and the person's going to be this like savior for their business. It's like, no, dude, you have to
No,
put the time into doing that. So I really appreciate that you brought that part up. That's huge.
no, it's a great call out, dude.